Hello, it is now 3 p.m. local times and welcome to VTV News live from Hanoi. I am Minh Hằng and let's now check out the headlines we have for you at this hour. China deploys 86 vessels to protect illegal oil rig. Vietnamese websites urge to strengthen security. An anti-human trafficking hotline to be established. In our first news today, now China deployed 86 vessels on Tuesday to protect the Haiyang Shiyou 981 oil rig, which has been illegally installed in Vietnam's exclusive economic zone and continental shelf, according to the Vietnam Marine Police. Now, VTV correspondents have recently reached the waters near the Paracel Islands close to the locations of the oil rig. Vietnamese Marine Police ships and fishery control ships approached the locations of China's illegal oil rig using loudspeaker and ships to drive Chinese vessels away on Tuesday. Although Vietnamese ships have tried to ward off attacks and warn Chinese vessels of their wrongdoings, many Chinese vessels have continued to escalate tensions by endangering Vietnamese ships. Chinese vessel number 46001 fired water cannons at Vietnamese Marine Police ships number 4032, breaking 10 meters of the handrails on the boat. Vietnamese fishermen are maintaining normal activities in waters near the Paracel Islands thanks to the support of the Vietnamese Marine Police and fishery control ships. Further developments of China's illegal deployments of the oil rig in Vietnam's waters and exclusive economic zone will be updated. Now, a group of foreign non-governmental organization or NGO expressed their deep concern about China's illegal installation of a drilling rig in Vietnam's water during a press conference in Hanoi on Tuesday. The event was organized by the Vietnam Union of Friendship Organizations or VUFO to discuss the recent developments in the East Sea. The event was attended by speakers and 300 delegates, including representatives from organizations operating in Vietnam and domestic and foreign media agencies. Speakers share history, legal aspects, as well as recent developments in the East Sea, with special emphasis placed on China's illegal installation of its Haiyang Shiyou 981 oil rig in Vietnam's waters, which is a serious violation of the sovereign rights and jurisdiction over the exclusive economic zone and continental shelf of Vietnam.
The action of China is quite risky, and I think Vietnam's reaction so far has been very prudent and very cautious, and I think that's the right approach. We will respond in ways that we think are appropriate to defuse the situation and to keep the dialogue open so that we can have a very peaceful win-win situation for all parties concerned. We have a small role to play, but I think we can encourage continued discussion. That's the most important thing we can do.
At the conference, representatives from foreign NGOs highly valued Prime Minister Nguyễn Tấn Dũng speech at the recent ASEAN summit in Myanmar, asking fellow South Asian leaders to unite with Vietnam in condemning China's oil rig in Vietnam's waters.
The fact that Prime Minister Dũng has raised this issue at the ASEAN meetings in Myanmar is a very good step. I think, however, much more needs to be done to marshal the support of ASEAN as well as other Western powers.
The recent ASEAN summit in Myanmar and all the ASEAN nations coming together and falling behind and supporting the Prime Minister of Vietnam to bring out a statement of solidarity and to put pressure onto one of the signatories, that is China, to abide by his commitment that was signed earlier. I think that was very strong, very powerful, and very correct.
Activity is now really to, first of all, try to de-escalate the situation, form round tables for discussion. I think the position of Prime Minister Nguyen Thanh Dung that he presented in the ASEAN summit is leading in the very right direction to de-escalate and to try to solve the problem.
The NGOs called on all parties concerned to persistently promote negotiations on the grounds of respecting the international law. The organizations agreed that China's withdrawal of its rig and other vessels out of Vietnam's waters would have sustained regional and global peace and stability alike. And continuing stories related to the EC situations, VTV reporters spoke with Deputy Ministers of Foreign Affairs Phạm Quang Vinh following his return from the 24th ASEAN Summit and ASEAN Foreign Minister meeting in Myanmar, where the EC situations received major attention. Let's now take a listen.
You have just come back from the 24th ASEAN Summit in Myanmar. Could you tell us what was the reaction of the member countries to China's illegal instrument of the Hải Dương Sử Dấu 981 oil rig?
ASEAN leaders agreed ASEAN needed to voice its opinions on the issue so that the situation could be resolved. ASEAN needs to show its active and central role in the region.
Leaders at the 24th ASEAN Summit and the chairman of the summit issued two statements mentioning the EC situation. Prior to that, foreign ministers of the ASEAN member countries also released a joint statement concerning the EC issue. What is the significance of these statements?
It is rare for ASEAN leaders to jointly express their deep concern over the developments on the EC like that. They called for restraint at all sides in order to avoid the escalation of conflict. They also condemned any act of violence. Furthermore, the ASEAN leaders requested that all countries obey the United Nations Convention on the Law of the Sea, the Declaration on the Conduct of Parties in the EC, and quickly move towards a code of conduct in the EC. On the foreign minister's statement, this is the first time in almost 20 years that a statement of this kind has been issued on the EC. This shows the immediacy of the statement. ASEAN countries can use the statement issued at the recent meetings as a basis for their actions.
Vietnam is committed to adopting diplomatic and peaceful solutions to protecting its sovereignty. How did ASEAN leaders respond to Vietnam's attitude?
ASEAN members highly value this attitude. They also recognize the gravity of China's violations. Drawing on that, ASEAN leaders realized the need for ASEAN to voice its opinion. As clearly stated in Prime Minister Nguyen Thanh Dung's speech, this is an issue that concerns not only Vietnam and China, but also the peace and security of the whole region. That's another reason for ASEAN to step in. China's actions have violated the fundamental principles of international relations by disobeying international law. That's why ASEAN needs to join together and urge for the respect of international law.
Thank you very much for the interview.
China's EC transgressions continue to draw widespread condemnation from the international community and Vietnam. However, Vietnam's consistent positions on EC issues dictates that it should be resolved by peaceful means in accordance with international law.
As the EC disputes continue, Vietnam has received widespread support from both domestic and international organizations. However, staging protests and damaging factories is against Vietnamese law, and it maintains its consistent position to resolve the disputes through peaceful means in accordance with international law.
Trung Quốc là bên gây hấn. Such behavior has violated Vietnamese law and affects businesses and the lives of people around them. As we call for international support, we have to comply with both international law and Vietnamese legislation. I think these behaviors must be stopped, and Vietnamese people should show their opposition through peaceful means. I think the gathering of workers in Bình Dương province shows their patriotism for Vietnam. Unfortunately, their actions have surpassed the limit allowed by law. Public gatherings in Vietnam must abide by the law, and if you violate and damage other people's property, you will be fined from 2 to 5 million Vietnamese đồng according to the law in Vietnam.
Experts believe it is crucial for Vietnamese people to understand the country's position and policies on the East Sea disputes. Vietnam is strong and uncompromising, but fully complies with international laws on this issue. This will be enhanced through the peaceful actions of the Vietnamese people.
Thousands of employees from enterprises in the Vietnam-Singapore One industrial zone in Bình Dương province stopped working on Tuesday and held a march to oppose China's territorial violations. Before the situation, the Vietnam General Confederations of Labor issues guidance to labor unions at all levels, particularly in cities and provinces which home industrial zones, in order to calm down workers and lead them back to work. Labor unions have been asked to supervise workers and disseminate information so that workers can express their patriotism prudently. Labor unions are responsible for helping workers to avoid provocation from subversive elements that could affect social security and domestic life. An original copy of Atlas Universelle from 1827 has recently been donated to the Ministries of Information and Communications. The reception took place on Tuesday here in Hanoi. The Atlas is an internationally recognized document proving Vietnam's sovereignty over the Paracel Islands. More in the following.
Published in 6 volumes in 1827, Atlas Universelle by Philippe van der Meulen is one of the most renowned atlases in the world. The atlas includes a detailed map on the East Sea, where Vietnam's sovereignty over the Hoàng Sa or Paracel Islands is clearly indicated.
This atlas clearly indicates that the Paracel Islands belong to the region of Cochin, China, which encompasses the southern part of Vietnam. It is a proof of Vietnam's sovereignty over the islands.
Atlas Universelle was the first atlas to show the entire landmass of the world on a uniform scale. Known for its scope and accuracy of details, it is hailed as one of Belgium's treasures and has inspired a 681-page research paper. In this map, the author drew the Paracel Islands. He noted on the side about the geographical features of the islands, like the reefs and the sandbanks. Even at that time, they were able to measure the locations of the islands quite accurately. Also in Atlas Universelle, China's territory is indicated as reaching only as far south as Hainan Island and not crossing over the 18th parallel north. This information is in accord with Chinese maps produced prior to the start of the 20th century and other Western maps.
The Atlas Universelle is an invaluable scientific document. It is a concise and effective proof of Vietnam's sovereignty.
The Royal Library of Belgium currently houses 5 original copies of the atlas. The copy now in possession of the Ministry of Information and Communications was acquired by a Vietnamese private collector from an antique bookshop in Brussels of Belgium.
Fishing vessels of the central region's fishermen are gathering at the water around the Spratly and Paracel Islands, for it is now peak fishing season. Despite overwhelming difficulties, they still cling to their traditional professions. Our following report takes a look at the close coordination and solidarity among the fishing crews.
Rice, instant noodle and canned food are gathered from neighbors and given to this family when the husband is away on fishing trips and the wife falls ill. A single man can't cast a huge net or haul a big tuna all by himself, but he always gets help from his fellow fishermen. From the small favors to heavy manual work, everything is shared among the fishermen community. The bond between them is simply created from the hardships that they endure together. Our neighbors are also our fellow fishermen, our partners in our daily work. Doing things together makes things so much easier, and we can even do the things that seem impossible. Ward 6 in Tuy Hòa City, Phú Yên Province is home to the most veteran tuna fishermen of the nation. The main fishing ground for more than 200 fishing vessels of this town are the waters around the Spratly and Paracel Islands. The local wharf is empty now, for most of the ships are currently away on the trips. The local fishermen union is also among the nation's very first unions. 132 fishermen have joined this union, using the ships to work together on the sea.
Since people join this union, we always support each other in their work. We are still able to make regular fishing trips to waters around the Spratly and Paracel Islands.
4 or 5 fishing vessels make up a group that work together on every trip. There are currently 3,500 such groups operating throughout the country, with about 135,000 men working in them. They achieve the yield of 1.2 to 1.5 times the amount they make when working alone. But high yields are not the only benefit from working in groups. Clinging to the sea together also brings them greater strength through unity, and with better support from the people and from the authorities, the fishermen are enjoying a more stable vocation.
I think that we managed to raise the awareness of our fishermen. The next step is to make sure that they get proper equipment that can raise their capabilities as well. For example, only with clear communications can they be aware of the situations and have appropriate behavior when they are at sea.
Fishermen can't live without the sea, and in situations like this, they can only cling to the sea if they work together. Risks can be reduced, the difficulties can be made easier, and the obstacles can be overcome when people are there to support each other.
Still to come on VTV News, hundreds of Vietnamese websites have been hacked by a Chinese hacking team called Team1937cn.net. An anti-human trafficking hotline to be established. That is coming up next on VTV News. Stay tuned for more. Welcome back to VTV News Live from Hanoi. Now, the Prime Minister has signed a decision to establish the Price Management Steering Committee headed by Deputy Prime Minister Vũ Văn Ninh. The steering committees will help the Prime Minister to develop guidelines and make decisions regarding price management while giving directions to municipal and provincial agencies to solve problems related to prices of essential goods in order to control inflation and stabilize the macroeconomy. According to many online newspapers, hundreds of Vietnamese websites have been hacked by a Chinese hacking team called Team1937cn.net. Let's take a look at the following report to find out whether this allegations is true and how it affects online security in Vietnam.
The Vietnam Computer Emergency Response Team reports that 139 Vietnamese websites have been hacked from May the 11th to the 13th. It means that on average 30 websites are hacked every day, an increase of 20% compared to normal. All the websites that were hacked belong to small enterprises that are vulnerable to hackers.
Recent attacks against Vietnamese websites use distributed denial of service or DDoS and attacking servers to obtain passwords or change the interfaces of websites. The latter has happened a lot, and hackers deliberately left traces to show their identity. Hackers have scanned for security holes to hack into websites. This hacking method is not very advanced, and the recorded attacks in recent days show that they are not professional hackers.
The large number of sites hacked in recent days are also due to many of them running off the same server. And when the server is compromised, all of its websites are also attacked.
Government and bank websites in Vietnam have pretty good security, so it's not easy for hackers to attack these websites. We have urged government agencies and businesses to check their systems and will support them with the necessary measures to maintain their website security.
Experts believe 40% of Vietnamese websites have security holes that are vulnerable to online attack. So IT staff are also being urged to check on all their systems and monitor the situation while preparing information on security firms to contact for help if necessary.
In other news, Japan International Cooperation Agency, or JICA, will provide technical support to help Vietnam set up an anti-human trafficking hotline in order to cope with increasingly difficult human trafficking cases in recent years, particularly in border provinces. A delegation from JICA on Tuesday started a 3-day field trip in Tịnh Biên district of southern province of An Giang to collect data on local current situation. The switchboard for this hotline will be set up in Hanoi. It will connect to other ends in northern province of Hà Giang and southern province of An Giang, where high levels of human trafficking cases recorded. This hotline project, expected to be put into operation from 2012 to 2015, promises to help authorities rapidly detect and prevent human trafficking cases in border regions. And now it's time we take a look at the online news about Vietnam. News.vn has the first story. It quoted the American Chamber of Commerce in Vietnam saying that Vietnam will surpass all other ASEAN nations to become the largest exporter to the U.S. next year. Vietnam currently stands behind Malaysia and Thailand in terms of export turnover to the U.S., the AmCham said in a report released last weekend. Vietnam will take over the top positions in 2015, the report stated. In 2014, the bilateral trade between Southeast Asian country and the U.S. is forecast to top $33.6 billion, with Vietnam's shipments totaling $28.1 billion. Moving on to other news by Varieties.com, it reported that Berlin-based A-Company Film Licensing has struck a deal with Vietnamese phone provider Viettel to distribute films and TV series on all of Viettel's digital platforms. A-Company is a content provider with a library of some 750 theatrical, home entertainments and televisions and video on demand titles to which it has rights in parts of East Europe and Russia. Titles covered by the Viettel deal includes Cloud Atlas and I, Frankenstein, as well as library content Underworld and Bulletproof Monk from the firm's lecture catalog. Vina Milk wants to use its investment in California's Driftwood Dairy to bring American products back to Vietnam and to sell its own products in the United States, the company has told JustFood.com. Late last year, Vina Milk, Vietnam's largest dairy processors, finalized a move to buying 70% in Driftwood. The acquisition is among a series of international investments as the company looks to take its turnover from last year's $1.5 billion to $3 billion by 2017. In recent months, Vinamilk has set up a venture in Cambodia and outlined plans for an office in Poland.
FreshPlaza.com has the first figure. The Deg Meat Cooperative in Chà Vinh Province has just exported a ton of red pitahaya or dragon fruit to the U.S. for 24,000 dong per kilo, or 0.82 euro. According to VietS, Agricultural Produce Company Director Vũ Công Bằng, the company has received an order for 2 more tons of dragon fruit for the U.S. in May, as it is a very popular fruit on the American market. Chà Vinh Province currently has 65 hectares of land for dragon fruit production. According to Oriya.com, citing local sources, the Vietnam government is planning to shift a total of 112,000 hectares of rice area in Mekong River Delta to other crops such as corn, wheat, and soybean by 2015 in order to reduce import costs on those commodities. The government is supportive of the move as the country has been importing huge quantities of corn, wheat, and soybeans yearly despite having favorable growing conditions in the Delta. According to a report released in the beginning of this year, Vietnam imported more than $4 billion worth of corn, wheat, and soybean in 2013.
And now, before we say goodbye, let's take a look at the updated weather forecast of major cities and provinces here in Vietnam, as well as around the world. The weather forecast has brought it to the end of VTV News. Thank you very much for tuning in. Simply log on to our address at vtv4.vn if you would like to rewatch this program. For now, goodbye from Hanoi.